Okay, Wildcats. Today we're looking at Thursday, March 1st, add and subtract rational expressions on page 61. If you would, update your table of contents. All right, now your table of contents are updated. Let's take a look at our notes. All right, add and subtract rational expressions, page 61. Adding and subtracting rational expression steps. Step 1, factor the denominators. Step 2, find the common denominator and multiply by a special 1. Step 3, simplify the numerator. Step 4, factor the numerator and divide out common factors. All right, so if you would, update your notes. All right, now your notes are updated. Let's take a look at our examples. All right, adding and subtracting rational expressions. Simplify the following expression. So we're going to start example 1 out with common denominators. The denominators are common, so you just add the numerators. So 1 plus 2 is 3 divided by 2. There is no special 1. We don't need to simplify the numerator, and we don't need to factor the numerator and divide out common factors. So basically, you're done. 3 divided by 2. All right, now I'm going to move into example 2, where you do not have common denominators, so we factor the denominator. So here, we can't factor anything out of the 5, but we can factor out a 5 from the 15, so that's 5 times 3. All right, so now we need to multiply by a special 1. So here, we need both of these denominators to be 15. So we need to multiply this 5 by 3, but you can't just do that. But you can multiply by 3 divided by 3. And that's what we mean by a special 1. Because 3 divided by 3 is 1, and we know that multiplying anything times 1 is itself, so we haven't changed 2/5. But we're multiplying by 3 divided by 3, so the denominators will be the same. Okay, so now we have 2 times 3 is 6, 5 times 3 is 15, which 6/15 reduces to be 2/5. But now we can add 6/15 plus 7/15. Well, 6 plus 7 is 13 divided by 15. And it doesn't reduce, so you are done with 13/15. All right, so now let's move on to example 3. Okay, so again, we factor the denominator. So we're going to factor 12. We know that 12 can be written as 4 times 3 minus, we know that 3 can be written as 4 times 2. Okay, so here we can see that we have a 4, 3, and a 4 and a 2. Well, the common denominator would be you multiply the numbers together. So 4 times 3 times 2. Okay, so now we're going to multiply this by 2 divided by 2 minus, we're going to multiply this by 3 divided by 3. And those are our special ones, okay? And the reason why we multiplied this by 2 divided by 2 is now we have 4, 3, 2, or 4 times 3 times 2. And the reason we multiplied by this by 3 divided by 3, so we have 4, 2, and 3. So now the denominators are the same, okay? So that equals 11 times 2 is 22. And then 4 times 3 is 12, times 2 is 24. Minus 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 8 is, and then times 3 is 24. Ran out of room, so let's use some space above the problem. So 22 minus 9 is 13 divided by 24. We can't reduce that, so we are done with 13 divided by 24. All right, so now let's look at example 4. All right, so we see here that example 4 already has the same denominator. So when the denominator is the same, we can add the numerators. So we have 2x minus 3 plus 3x plus 4 divided by 4x minus 1. And we can write it that way because they're both divided by 4x minus 1. Now we combine terms. 2x plus 3x is 5x. And then negative 3 plus 4 is 1, so 5x plus 1 divided by 4x minus 1. We can't factor out anything from the numerator denominator, so we are done. All right, example 5. All right, so we factor the denominator, but again, we have the common denominator, so we don't have to do that, and there's nothing to factor out. So when the denominator is the same, in this case we subtract. So we have 3x minus 4 minus, now we're subtracting all of that, so we're going to put that in parentheses, 5x plus 3, and that's all divided by 4x plus 5. And we can do that because they're both divided by 4x plus 5. So now we subtract, so we have 3x minus 4, and we distribute, we're subtracting, but because we're subtracting by both terms, we're actually distributing it by negative 1. So negative 1 times 5x is negative 5x. Negative 1 times 3 is a negative 3 divided by 4x plus 5. So now we simplify the numerator. So 3x minus 5x is negative 2x. And then negative 4 minus 3 is a negative 7. Divided by 4x plus 5. And you can't factor anything from the numerator denominator. I mean, we can factor out negative 1, but it's not going to make a difference. So we're done with negative 2x minus 7. All right, so now let's look at example 6. All right, so it says factor the denominator, so we're going to do that first. So we have x minus 1 divided by, we're going to factor the denominator, which we know is x and x, and we need to find all the common numbers to make 2, so we really just have 1 times 2. Well, 1 plus 2 is 3, so we know it's x plus 1, x plus 2. Plus x divided by x plus 1 It appears the sun has come out and made this extremely bright. So give me a few seconds. Let me adjust some lighting in the video. All right, there we go. All right, so now it says find the common denominator. Well, the common denominator would be x plus 1 times x plus 2. Well, this is missing the x plus 2, so we're going to multiply by the special one. We're going to multiply by x plus 2 divided by x plus 2. We can do that because x plus 2 divided by x plus 2 is 1. So we haven't done anything to change the problem, but we're manipulating it so that we now have the same denominators, okay? So now we have x minus 1 plus x times x plus 2, and that's all divided by x plus 1 times x plus 2. We can do that because now they're both divided by x plus 1 times x plus 2, so now we can write it like that. So now we simplify the numerator. We have, I'm going to put a 1 there, 1x minus 1. And we're going to distribute the x. So x times x is x squared. And then x times 2 is 2x. And that's all divided by x plus 1 times x plus 2. All right, so now we simplify the numerator. So we have x squared. And then 1x and 2x is 3x. And then minus 1 divided by x plus 1 times x plus 2. So we see if the numerator is factorable. So the only combination to make negative 1 is 1 times negative 1. Well, that combination will not give you 3, so the numerator can't be factored, so it is as simplified as it can be. All right, so let's take a look at example 7. Okay, so step 1, factor denominator. So the first here, that's just nothing you can do to factor that. It says plus negative 18, but we can go ahead and just make that minus 18 divided by, now x squared minus 9 is actually an example of a perfect square, and it's factored as x minus 3 and x plus 3. All right, so now it says find the common denominator and multiply by a special one. So the common denominator would be x minus 3 and x plus 3. Well, this is missing the x minus 3, so we're going to multiply it by a special one. So we're going to multiply that by x minus 3 divided by x minus 3 times x divided by x plus 3. And that's minus 18 divided by x minus 3, x plus 3. Now the denominator is the same. We're going to simplify the numerator. Okay? And so then that's x times x squared minus 3x, we distribute the x, minus 18. And that's divided by x minus 3 times x plus 3. Now at this point we want to see if the numerator is factorable. Well, we know x and x. And now we want to find all the combinations to make negative 18. Well, we know 1 times negative 18, 2 times negative 9, 3 times negative 6. Well, 3 times negative 6 gives you negative 18. 3 minus 6 is negative 3, so this is factored as x plus 3x minus 6. Now, you can see that this divided by this is 1, but I like to rewrite it so it's easier to see that as x plus 3, x minus 6. Now with it written that way, it's easier to see that this divided by itself is 1. So you're left with x minus 6 divided by x minus 3. And that's what we call dividing out common factors. All right, so now let's take a look at example 8. So we factor the denominator. And again, this is an example of a perfect square. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and factor out the numerator as well. Actually, you know what? No, I'm not going to do that yet. So 2x squared minus 16. Now this is a perfect square. X minus 2x plus 2 minus, put that in parentheses, x plus 4 divided by x plus 2. Now we need to multiply it by the special one to make have a common denominator. And so we see that this has x plus 2, but it's missing the x minus 2. So we're going to multiply this by x minus 2 divided by x minus 2. So we have 2x squared minus 16 divided by x minus 2 times x plus 2 minus, we're going to multiply this by x minus 2 divided by x minus 2. Now the denominators are the same. We're going to simplify the numerator. Okay, so then that's 2x squared minus 16x minus, we need to FOIL this, so x times x is x squared, x times 4 is 4x, negative 2 times x is negative 2x, and then negative 2 times 4 is a negative 8. And that's all divided by x minus 2 times x plus 2. Okay, so then that's 2x squared. We're still simplifying the numerator to 2x squared minus 16. We distribute this negative 1. So negative 1 times x squared is negative 1x squared. Negative 1 times 4x is a negative 4x. Negative 1 times a negative 2 is a positive 2x. And then negative 1 times negative 8 is a positive 8. And that's divided by x minus 2x plus 2. So now we continue to simplify the numerator. So 2x squared minus 1x squared is 1x squared. Now we look at the x's. Negative 4x plus 2x is a negative 2x. And sometimes as I'm simplifying, I kind of mark out the terms I've already used. So it's easier to see. So now we have negative 16 and 8 is a minus 8. And that's divided by x minus 2, x plus 2. At this point, we want to see if the numerator is factorable. So we would have parentheses, parentheses, divided by x minus 2, x plus 2. All right, so we know x and x. And we look at all the common factors of negative 8. So we know 1 times negative 8, 2 times negative 4. Well, this combination will give us a negative 2, so we have x plus 2, x minus 4. And again, we can see that the x plus 2 is divided out, but we're going to rewrite it so we can see it clear. So we can write this as x plus 2 times x minus 4 divided by x plus 2 times x minus 2. And we can rewrite this because we know the multiplication property is this times this is the same as this times this. Okay? But here we can see that this divides and becomes 1. So we're left with x, and you don't even need parentheses anymore, x minus 4 divided by x minus 2. All right, so now let's take a look at example 9. All right, so again, we want to factor the denominator. And let's see. I don't know, I put a line there, but I don't know if there's enough space to factor these right here. So let's go into this line. So we have x plus 7. And if we try to factor, we have x and x. Now, in order to find all the factors of 42, I'm going to use the calculator. And I'm going to go to On, New Document, No, Add Graph. And I'm going to do 42 divided by x. And what that's going to do is that's going to give us, well, first of all, press enter. When I press Control T, that's going to give us all the values that give us 42. And then we're looking for one that combination that combines to be 13. So that doesn't be 13. That doesn't. Aha. 6 and 7 become 13. So we know that the factors are x plus 6 and x plus 7. Minus 10x divided by, factor the denominator. And so we know x and x. We look at the combination to make 7. We know that 1 times 7, and that becomes 8. So we have it x plus 1, x plus 7. So when you want to find the denominator, you multiply them all together. So we see here that this has x plus 6, x plus 7, but it's missing x plus 1. And this has x plus 1, x plus 7, and it's missing x plus 6. So we need to multiply by the magic 1. So we're going to multiply x plus 7 divided by x plus 6 times x plus 7 times x plus 1 divided by x plus 1. Now the denominator has all the terms minus 10x divided by x plus 1 times x plus 7 times, this one's missing x plus 6, so we're going to multiply it by x plus 6, x plus 6. All right, so now you see the denominator has the same three terms, x plus 6, x plus 7, x plus 1, x plus 6, x plus 7, x plus 1. Now we simplify the numerator, okay? So then we're going to FOIL here. So x times x is 1x squared. X times 1 is 1x. That's you get plus 1x. And then, let's see, 7 times x is plus 7x. And then 7 times 1 is 7. And then we distribute the negative 10x times x plus 6. So negative 10x times x is negative 10x squared. And negative 10x times 6 is negative 60x. And that's all divided by x. I'm going to list them from smallest to greatest. So the 1, then 6, and 7. So x plus 1 times x plus 6, x plus 7. You don't have to write it that way. It just looks much better that way. So now we need to simplify the numerator. Okay, so now 1x squared minus 10x squared is a negative 9x squared. I think I'm going to mark out terms as they go so it's easier to see. Now we have 1x plus 7x minus 60x, which is negative 52x. And then plus 7. Divided by x plus 1, x plus 6, x plus 7. Now at this point you want to factor out the negative 1, so that's negative 1 times 9x squared plus 52x plus 7 divided by x plus 1, x plus 6, x plus 7. All right, to see if that's factorable, I'm going to revert to the box method to see if there's a chance of that being factored. Okay, so we know first term, last term, 7. Now, we know that 3x and 3x lined it here. Okay, we're trying to get 52x. And the only combinations to give you 7 are +1 and +7. Okay? So then that's 3x, and then that's 7, 14, 21x. That's not going to give you 52x, okay? So that combination didn't work. Okay? So now, the only other option we have is first term, last term, is we know that 9x and 1x make 9 squared. We're still trying to get 52x. So now we can try +1 here and +7 here. Okay? So then that's 9x, and then that's 7x. That's not going to give you 2x. So the only other option you have is to make this a +7 and this a +1. So then that's 9 times 7 is 61, and that's 1x. It's not going to combine to give you 52x. So we've gone through every possible combination. So this is as simplified as it can be. All right, so I know this video and some of the problems, it looked like it was almost like magic, and you were like, well, whoa, you're probably, some of you are like, what in the world is going on? But if you understood it, again, you have two options. At this point, if you understood it, you can start working on the assignment. If you had some trouble and you're like, what in the world was this? I can go over the examples in class and the assignment in class if you need to. So keep that in mind. And with that, have a wonderful Wildcat day.